And you're listening to the HomeBuyer's Hour on WCPT AM 820, where the facts matter. And good morning if you're listening to us on Saturday morning. We are all in the studio today, which kind of makes me happy. And we're going to be introducing a commercial/residential real estate broker. His name is Cesar DeeSouza. In fact, you know what? The hell with that. Let's go straight to Cesar right now. Cesar, tell me about you and why you're special to me. Trick questions.
Jesus. Well, thank you guys. Thank you for having me here this morning. I appreciate that very much. Why am I special? I don't know if I'm special. My whole mindset behind representing my clients is if I would represent my mom, my aunt, my grandfather. That's the mindset that I go into with it. That I'm fighting as if it's a family member, and that's the beginning of my mindset when it comes into this transaction. Whether it's a commercial or residential, it's most of the times it's like people's biggest investment in their lives. So what I understand from past experiences, they said this is a very stressful experience. So to have someone there guiding you and actually caring, and that you trust more than anything, because that's a big part of the transactions. Like you like and trust the person that you're dealing with, and vice versa too with the client as well. I need to know, like, and trust them.
That sounds like business, networking, international information right there. So I know those keywords, and we're going to focus on that. And I do want you to tell us some horror stories when it comes to mortgage brokers, attorneys, and home inspectors as well. All right?
I have them. I mean, trust me, I have those stories.
And I'm
for
sure.
you.
And that's the biggest thing I want to get into in our real estate professions, is that there's more bad than good. I'm sorry to say. And how to recognize the good.
And if you have actual horror stories, if you've been in any haunted buildings, I'd love to hear any of that as well. So actual horror stories or figurative horror stories, as I think Charlie was referring to.
If I think the more horror stories are the ones with the clients and then the buildings, and I would take the building horror story before the client.
You'd rather have a ghost than a terrible client. Fair enough.
Yeah.
So, that's Patrick Loftus of Loftus Law. And Patrick, if you don't mind, give us a little more introduction to yourself.
Yeah, I'm the serious guy. I'm the lawyer in the room. All right, so watch yourselves. I know how to file.
Only one of those two things is true.
I know how to file a lawsuit, so watch your mouth. Mm-hmm. My name is Patrick Loftus. I don't really file lawsuits. All right, let's make that clear. I'm a real estate lawyer. I handle residential real estate transactions. I do handle some commercial. All right, so when you're talking about multifamily, I've handled, I think, up to, let's call 12, 15 unit buildings. They dance to their own drummer, so to speak. And we're going to talk a lot about that, I think. Yeah. If you want to get more of this, all right, find me on social media. I'm on Instagram, Loftus_law, LOF, like Frank, T like Tom, US like Sam. The auto captions on YouTube, love that one. Find me on TikTok at Loftus Law.
Sounds good. And then my name is Charlie Bellefontaine. I own Chicagoland Home Inspectors. Our phone number is 312-544-9180. And Joey Matthews, I'd like to introduce him. And Joey, give us more information about you and that famous neighborhood loans that you work for.
Hey, Joey Matthews, the VA Loan Nerd, NMLS 1330694. You can find me at thevaloannerd.com. You can find me on social medias as at the VA Loan Nerd. You can find me staring at Patrick Loftus, wondering what the heck he's doing. You can also feel free to call or text me at 630-235-2405. We have a button for that, but we didn't use it.
Is it this button here?
It's too late. It's already we done been through.
Yeah. No, come.
Okay.
Give me the music.
There we go.
It's coming.
So the 10-year Treasury is trading at a 4.287% yield, and it's a little bit lower than it has been in the last week.
I'm lathered up right now.
After PPI, the Producer Price Index, came in hot last week. The exact opposite of my prediction, as per the usual. I'm right 50% of the time. we saw the 10-year Treasury and mortgage-backed securities spike a little bit, and in the last few days, we have seen a retreat back under that 4.3% yield. Today, we have Jay Powell ruining our life. I'm just kidding.
You leave him alone. He's my favorite finance guy.
We got the man, I hate you. I love you. We have the Fed interest rate decision coming in. They're not going to raise rates. I know that they're now what they're talking about a lot is if the Fed waits too long to raise rates, are they going to accidentally tip the economy into the recession that we've talked about for the last 2 years? But with what the jobs market has shown, quote unquote, minus revisions, we still have a tight labor market supposedly. And yeah, so we'll the big thing about this decision is going to be the commentary. It's not going to be about the decision itself because they're not going to move rates at all this month. I would anticipate middle summer, so June or July meeting, we'll see at least the first cut. If it's going to be 0.25%, if it's going to be 0.5%, we'll see. But we will see. Mostly, we will hear what they have to say about where they think the economy is heading and how they feel about the possibility of staying too high for too long and then tipping into a recession. So that's where we're at.
We've been talking about doom and gloom and all that stuff for the last few years, but
it's only been 2 years.
Everything's been going pretty good. You know.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I mean,
For you.
I mean,
well,
if you hate
I don't
money.
know who it's been going bad for. Real estate, the house prices have consistently gone up. You know, I know there's inflation, but there always has been. You know, and I think we're close to that mark of that 3 to 5% mark.
They want to be at 2. They want to be at 2. That's the key. They want to be at 2. Yeah, we're at 3.8% from this last reading, which is still a 2-year low. Yeah. So it's been, you know, doing work. It's just now that because it decelerated so quickly. It went from that 10% in June of 2022 down to where we're at now at 3.8%. And the last few months of readings have been really steady around that 4% up or down a little bit, right? But prior to that, like it was decelerating very quickly, and now we're at the real slow downward, soft landing, if you will.
Yeah. Well, let's who's it going bad for? I mean, you know, Cesar. I don't mean to say it's going bad for you, but like real estate brokers, for example, you know, we're experiencing so few transactions, let's say I'd say second half of 2022, definitely for 2023. And, you know, the inventory levels are at like, you know, record low levels. The last I heard in January was like 11,000, you know, homes on the market in the entire Chicago area. Who's it going bad for? Real estate brokers who are trying to get deals done. I mean, how many multiple offer situations have you seen where, you know, there's 6 losers?
A lot. Unfortunately, a lot. And that started more where we started feeling it even before the corona situation happened, where we started seeing multiple offers in certain pockets of here, the Chicagoland area. We already seen some slight dips. But when the corona thing happened, obviously everything went array and things went up and started going down. So it's frustrating being in this situation because on either side, if you're a buyer, yes, you have to put multiple offers for your client, but on the seller side as well, you understand the other side that's frustrating for the client. So what we've implemented is more keeping in communication with all the buyer's agents and letting them know what the situation is, because no one really wants to hear, hey, highest and best by 5 p.m.
It's highest and best season. That's the worst of the seasons.
No one really, if the buyer doesn't feel the greatest putting those type of offers, and even the seller, when they have all these offers, like, what should I go with? And
right.
Then it's again more of our duty to weed out. I think we were mentioning before this morning, really doing our due diligence of seeing who is really qualified and who's the real offer and what's the best offer, because sometimes the highest offer is not necessarily the best offer.
And I do want to get into more details like with that, but we do have a question that was typed in, and you know, because we also want to talk a little bit about the NAR settlement. So I'm going to ask that you take a little lead on this one, all
Sure.
right? And the two of you please chime in. So the question is, please explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old, is what they're asking. Who does this affect, and how does this take away available funds from either a buyer, or will this help or hurt a seller?
We only have 53 minutes.
That's the short abridged version then, all right?
So it affects, I mean, it affects everybody, really. It's more about how you go about it. So the question was how, explain,
Explain what the settlement means to as if it's a 5-year-old. So why did the lawsuit happen, and what is the settlement? What did they agree to?
they agreed to not have the buyer's compensation listed on the MLS.
And more so, I'm going to jump in, it's pre-written in the MLS, right? So it's predefined before the buyer can actually negotiate it.
It shows you 2.5%, whatever it is. It shows you right in the listing.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to step on Cesar. You asked him a question. If I was to sum up the basis of the lawsuit as succinctly as I could, there's really two aspects of it. One is that sellers are arguing that they shouldn't have to pay the buyer's broker. Okay, so that is one aspect of it. And the four of us in this room, we've been in and around real estate long enough that we've just taken that for granted. So I think that is a much more serious question from people who are outside the business. Why is that? Why is that? I know before I was involved in this business, I was under the assumption that each side paid their own broker, and once I got into it, I was like, okay, well, that's not the case. I was surprised. I was surprised by that. So I think the general public probably had the same general feeling about who is supposed to pay who. That's one aspect of it. Another aspect of it is that when the listing agent or the seller chooses the amount of compensation that the buyer's agent gets, that takes the agency away from the buyer to negotiate with their agent as to how much they think that service is worth. And at least one jury in Kansas City said, you know what, we agree. We agree that both of those things are wrong. Now, what is in the settlement, there's a big payment. All right, fine, fair enough. That the big payment's not really going to affect things going forward.
I'm curious about.
There's really two main bullet points in the settlement. One is that real estate brokers are no longer going to be allowed to engage in real estate, in showing homes with a buyer without a written agreement, which is going to affect the brokerages who get their leads via website sales funnels, Redfin, Zillow, these kinds of things. I talked about that on my Instagram and TikTok yesterday. Yeah. The other part of it is that what Cesar said, the buyer co-op is no longer going to be listed on the MLS listing. Now the hope and what the intention is that the seller is now going to have a better position to bargain with their listing agent as to how much they want to pay overall in terms of a real estate commission. So if they don't want to pay $6, they can say, look, I'll pay $4, and this is how much I want that to go to.
But they're not going to be. That's everybody's commission when you talk about the 4 and the 6%. They're going to be getting a lot less. And Cesar, I'd like to know how you're going to address that. All right. So as far as showing properties and getting that, agreement. I mean, we were chatting earlier as well about. Some people go, well, I'll show you a couple of houses, we'll build a rapport, we'll like each other, and then I'll get you to sign my agreement.
Yep.
Well, that sounds like you can't do that anymore.
You can't.
As of July.
As of mid-July or something.
Well, how do you build that relationship with the client to have them trust you enough where they're going to keep you for 6 months to buy a property?
We approach it in the way, and we've already been doing this. We approach it in the same way as a listing.
All right.
Where we go in there, it's like a presentation. What we found is when we do this and present it to the buyer and understand the whole process, they feel a lot more educated and less questions come about.
And when you say we, are you talking about Exit Realty, or are you talking about you and your team?
Just my team,
okay.
Myself and my team from EXP actually. EXP is our realty company. So we approach it in that sense because a lot of the times people are, I don't know what the mindset of the buyer is, but with these TV shows, it seems like we're just they open doors and all of a sudden you get a contract and everything is done.
Well, I think that's all of us. We're seen as a commodity.
Yeah.
Where everybody's the same and the only thing differentiates people is price.
Yeah.
All right, and how are you going to overcome that? What are you going to tell people?
That's
why
part of it.
choosing-
It's part of how you present yourself, and you're the authority figure, and also the person that is there to bring knowledge. And I like to put it in the sense of you guys, the buyer, the clients, is like the president and CEO of a company. We're
Okay.
like the vice president of analytical data. We're there to help them make a better decision and guide them through that. But they're the ultimate decision makers. But to get back to the point of how do we go about it, is we present in the same way as a listing presentation. We let them know what the whole process is, what we do, to let them know exactly. It's not just opening a door. Really, in my view, our job does not start until there is a contract in place. Then that's when the negotiating and things. The property, yeah, it's a little bit of an issue finding the right one. But once you do that, that's really when the real work gets done. We have the attorneys involved, Joey here, with the financing, and there's a lot of moving heads and parts, and that's really what we like to almost show them the timeline and what the whole different jobs that we have to get it to the closing table, because again, finding the property is just one aspect of a whole line of.
And I think that's where most real estate brokers are going to fail, is they're not going to be able to give their perceived value out to people.
Bingo,
But
the value part. Yeah.
the other things I wanted to talk about, we mentioned earlier on the horror stories, and I'd love to, tell me some stories about mortgage brokers, and especially the ones that kill the deals, or the ones that, like the last minute kills. I mean, that's got to really make people angry.
Yeah. Again, early in your career, you're like, you don't really care. I guess you don't know until you come into the point where you do all this work, and again, the presentation, you show them a few places, you finally find the property. The lender says they're good to go, and then 3-4 weeks into the process, they're like, actually, they don't qualify for the property. So everyone loses, not only ourselves with our time, the buyer, the seller as well, because they took that property off of the market, had it under contract for a few weeks. Potential buyers could have wanted that house and moved on to another one. So there's such of loss.
Ecosystem, right?
Yes, an ecosystem that all fails. And that's what I mean by having someone like Joey or someone that tells you, hey, they're qualified.
Building a team.
Yeah, they're qualified. Then it's one less thing that on my mind that I'm like, okay, I don't know if they're gonna. No, Joey told me they're qualified. They're good to go, because he's going to look at A, Y, and Z, from A to Z. Here's a perfect example of a horror story where I don't know if it's too much of the loan officer, but it's also about the communication of the client as well, where they weren't fully transparent with the loan officer, and the 2 weeks prior to closing, they're like, you know what, he didn't tell me about a child support payment. And
For those listening on the radio, Joey just went out the deep end. If we had a clip here, he'd be on the ground.
He's been triggered.
Why are you shaking your head, Joey?
No, it's that. I mean, you didn't tell me about it, but did you review pay stubs? Did you look at the bank statements? I mean, it's going to be there. It's going to be very, very obvious that there is.
So pay stubs would be like on garnishments. Or
Exactly,
something like that.
and it's listed. It literally says like CS or maintenance or child support directly, or if it's taken out of the pay stubs, you see it there too. Like that's just. I'm sorry, in the bank statement. Like, it's just.
But this is all important stuff. Is the point I'm trying to make?
Yeah.
Is that everybody there's good and there's bad in every profession,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And just by assuming that we're going with whatever company, it's that they're all the same. But that's when at the final hour, 11 o'clock, that's when things fall apart. And I guess all of us have, well, not me.
This
You
was a
guys are more
well-known
involved in
company,
that than I am.
a well-known company that I don't want to mention because it's not really about the company. It's really about the individual.
Joe, you want to mention a couple
That's
companies?
that's all. Hey, no, I'm on the same page. When you get a pre-approval, I mean, well, there's certain companies where I'm like, all right, that's toilet paper, right? But you always look at the loan officer. That's because that's who's going to close that thing. It's not going to be the company. You may have slow operations potentially, right? Or whatever. But if that loan officer has a good reputation, it's going to be obvious.
Well, how do you know somebody has a good reputation?
I mean,
how
people-
do I know you have a good reputation?
look me up.
Where?
I'm anywhere. Google, freaking Facebook, whatever.
So social media is the best way to find out.
TheVALoanNerd.com.
Hit the button. Hit the button.
No, that's not button worthy. But client reviews, freaking Facebook. I have Zillow reviews. I have one bad Zillow review, and it's because my wife left a bad review about a dentist's office on Yelp, and so they reviewed me back. But yeah, it's
so petty.
it's all about the loan officer. A good loan officer will be a good loan officer wherever they work.
Yeah.
And if they're at a company that may have some hurdles, they'll work on fixing those companies' hurdles.
They probably won't be at that company very long. They'll get poached. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, even if I'm not looking up Joey, from the very beginning, you're going to see that he's doing the things that you expect a good mortgage broker to do. Like you really
And I
know
guess
right
that's
off
what
the
I'm
bat.
asking. I don't know what to expect.
Or just call me.
You know?
Call a loan officer. If they pick up the phone, freaking awesome. Have a good conversation with
Yeah.
them. You know, have you really gotten into it? Like, again, with VA, it's very easy. You can ask one question, and if they say I don't know or no, you hang up and you go to the next offer. Do you have your certificate eligibility? Like, that's lead with that. Get the answer. Only
It's
one
funny you
answer is
say
right.
that because somebody was asking me about termite inspections on a property they're buying, and because I've heard you say that so many times, I asked them. I said, "Do you have your certificate of whatever?" it's
Yeah.
called?"
Certificate of eligibility.
Thank you very much.
Crushed it.
Now I want to play the song. But and they said no, nobody ever asked me for that. I need to have you talk to you, and I put them in touch with you on this stuff. I said whether you use them or not, I don't care, but make sure you drop my name, and he'll coach you through the stuff.
Mhm.
You know, and I get it. You want the business and stuff like that, but more importantly, you're going to help somebody even if you don't get the business.
1,000%.
And that's what's important to me. And same thing with you, Patrick. I know that most attorneys, their favorite line is always going to be, I don't give free legal advice, but I'm sorry, I got to throw the malarkey flag at you if you ever say that. Yeah, here it comes, you know.
Oh,
And
I almost
that-
took out the camera.
Almost took out the camera.
We're still here.
They are. But the whole idea is this is emotional. It's a big deal and so forth. So let's turn that over a little bit to Patrick and give me a bad attorney and how that kind of messed up a client.
Absolutely. Bad attorney.
Why you giggling?
Oh, because I'm ready to dunk on some people. Let's go.
All right.
A bad attorney is one that.
That must be hipster talk. Dunk on someone. Sorry, this boomer's on it. All right.
No, a bad attorney
Up
is
your nose.
one that I felt that either didn't care about the client or it was almost like another transaction, and it just like never heard, the client never heard from the attorney. They just heard from their assistants. Another
Gotten
one,
those?
yeah, another one. Instead of calling me and letting me be aware about a situation, he just emailed their side, our side, everybody with okay, here's the thing. With the response from our loan officer, he just pasted that and just re-put it to the whole to their side, which that was just an internal communication of ours. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And something that was a possibility, like we didn't have to extend the closing, for example, and then he wanted to extend it for like another week or two. And of course, their side read it and they just canceled the deal because they're like, no, they felt also that we were trying to putting some inspections that the property didn't pass. And all this happened because of lack of communication, where he could have picked up the phone call. I think we mentioned with Patrick before that he likes to pick up the phone call before sending an email because it's all about how you interpret this communication. So when you read an email, you could have already had a bad phone call right before that, and it just everything goes away. So it's mostly that is getting the feeling that the attorney doesn't really care about the client, and that's all it takes. Is Charlie's one deal like that, I will never use that attorney again.
Well, we all go to school, all right? And sometimes we go to college, sometimes whatever it is, trade school. Sometimes it's a college of hard knocks.
Yeah.
And that's where you went. And that's the whole idea that I try to do with the show is that get that information, get it out there so that more people are aware of it and they don't have to learn it the hard way. But you two were giggling again, you know, about what he was saying about the attorney and writing the letter with, you know, sharing information that he shouldn't have. Please elaborate why the giggles.
Well, it's like, I think when you send any kind of email, I mean, look, I don't know the specifics of the situation. You could very well be a lawyer that doesn't handle a lot of real estate transactions and thought, that it was just an innocuous email that they were forwarding on. In which case, that lawyer lacks the competence to handle real estate transactions without some kind of, I don't know, mentorship or whatever it is. And, if you're the kind of lawyer that thinks, well, real estate transactions are easy, and you either don't treat it with the amount of seriousness or care, the word care, Cesar's used a number of times, and
which makes me happy, I'll tell you that.
Having the feeling that the people involved in the transaction genuinely care about the client and the result, it certainly gives off the wrong vibe if you're sort of aloof and you're like, well, I'm busy with other things, or I handle this, that, and the other thing, and those are much more serious matters, and you're like, all of the matters you handle are serious. Okay, they're serious to the people involved.
Yeah.
And so
it's not me, it's you.
And really, that's one of the big reasons that I really niche down into real estate, which is I want to be the expert. I want to be the the best real estate attorney possible, and I really don't feel like I can be that with distractions, right? If I'm worried about putting together someone's estate plan, if I'm worried about an eviction case that I've got to file, and there's any number of things that could distract you from something that's really important. And when
all three of us too.
Well,
and you too, Cesar. I didn't mean to exclude.
Like if I can't identify
there
that email that I'm cutting and pasting to the other side, I mean, let's be very clear. This is not the old days where the client is shielded from the actual communication because they're not, pre-email, you would have the lawyer just explaining what was in the letter, right? And,
right.
Now that we have email, the emails just get forwarded back and forth, okay? So whatever I'm writing to the other lawyer, the client is reading it, right? The client is going to see it. They're going to interpret it the way that a client would interpret it. Now, I can soften the language. I can't always make it, nice and, hey, it's not I'm a lawyer. Right? That's how I write. But, the manner of communication, the amount of communication, even the mode of communication. We talk a lot. Yeah, I think, this is going to sound like I'm trying to drag us back to the Stone Age, but, email is a really important tool. It allows a lot of things that were never possible before, and the speed at which you can do things, and the convenience, and the places I can go and still be present with my business. But if I'm not also utilizing the other tools at my disposal, namely a phone, okay, we talked at breakfast the 7-38-55 rule. 7% of what you communicate is the words. 38% is the manner in which you communicate them. When someone reads an email, they read it in their own voice, in their own head.
Exactly.
They interpret it the way that they interpret it based on the way that they heard it in their own head, okay? That they're adding that 38% that you can instead utilize when you pick up the phone. So, I'm going on these long monologues, right? But I have
it's all
really
important stuff.
Your tonality, how you
continue
sound
this.
on the phone,
But
you
I
sound concerned.
I
or
do
not.
want to continue this, but believe it or not, we're halfway through it. Patrick, I'm going to ask that you go ahead and give your contact information again, please.
Well, if you want more of this scintillating, percentages of how communication is, it is to the tens of fans that we have out there, and I would be remiss if I didn't serve them up what they want. If you want more, though, find me on social media, follow me, DM me any questions you have. Instagram, Loftus_law. On TikTok, I am at Loftus Law.
Sounds good. And my name is Charlie Bellefontaine. I own Chicagoland Home Inspectors. We are looking to expand. So if you're interested in getting into the home inspection business, we need help, But just to be clear, if you're listening to this show, everything that you hear is passion from everybody that comes on this show. And that's the biggest thing that we look for when we bring on an inspector. I really don't care about your knowledge. I don't care about your experience, all right? What I do care about is your passion to help another human being. I'll give you the experience. I'll give you the knowledge. We'll go ahead and get that. But that attitude of actually caring for people, I hope you hear it with the other professionals in the room with me, that's vitally important. All right. And Joey, please give us your contact info.
Why, sure. My name is Joey Matthews, the VA Loan Nerd. You can find me at thevaloannerd.com or across all social medias as at the VA Loan Nerd. If you feel like you want to, you could call or text me at 630-235-2405.
They want me to play them romantic voices.
While it's happening, Charlie, while it's happening.
And then Cesar, please, if
Someday
you don't
I'll
mind.
be given.
And then Patrick, you got Cody Ship here being your fan. He said
Yeah.
he calls you way too often.
Hey, Cody.
And then
Good-
other
good to
people
hear
are
from you.
saying we got fans across the nation.
That's
so
what's
they're
up. There
you go.
insulted by the tens. But anyways,
All right.
Cesar,
Dozens.
please.
Fine.
Cesar DeeSouza, real estate broker. I do residential and commercial as of late. You can reach me directly at 847-997-0623 with any questions or concerns. I would be glad to
All right.
answer your questions.
And then beat me up a little bit. I should say me, but beat up our profession a little bit. Tell me how home inspectors have harassed your deal or killed your deal.
Yeah.
Hurt his feelings right now.
I have only one feeling, so go ahead, hurt it.
With home inspectors it's a wide range, right?
A lot of uneducated in our business.
Yeah.
I say that over and over again. It's not insulting.
Yeah.
You know?
For example, if it's a home inspector that wants to show his worth, all of a sudden they're pointing out every single thing in the house that doesn't really need to be pointed out, and all it does is spook your potential client buyer. Instead of, you could point things out and also settle them at the same time. Oh, you see this crack right here? That's like a settling crack. It's not a big issue. And you kind of talk about things, but then explain them why you're pointing them out, but how what's not a big deal. You know what? This is kind of a big deal. We'll look at that a little bit further. It'll be in the report. So it's all the way how they present and while they're inspecting, how they go about explaining that to the client. I've had an experience 6 months ago. The inspection went great. I was like, no, everything is good. And then the next day, he blows up my phone, blows up the client's phone, saying, "Oh, I found something in the inspection report. I didn't see it." He's like, "There's possibly some lead pipe."
And he being your client.
Him being the inspector.
Okay.
The home inspector was blowing my phone the next day, and he called the client directly, saying, "Look at this on page whatever," and again, not blowing up the deal in the sense of making something way more important than it actually was.
So, Cesar, let me give you a little test question about home inspectors, all right?
Oh dear.
Oh, dear.
Uh-oh.
How many hours or how many days or how many months do you think it takes to get a home inspector license in the state of Illinois?
Ooh.
And guesses are fine. I don't expect you
I
to
would
know the answer.
say 20 hours.
20 hours? Okay, then we get triple that. All right, it takes 60 hours of schooling to get a license. I think that's way too little.
Okay.
So half of
All
what
right.
y'all had to do, right? Isn't
Yeah.
it 120 for
Yeah.
a real estate broker?
Yeah.
Well, that's
So-
right, yeah.
So half of that.
20 for mortgage.
Oh my God.
20 for mortgage, 60 for home inspector.
It's slightly longer for law.
Yeah, I think you're talking years.
well,
years.
it's
You know?
minimum really 7 years between undergrad and law school. So
And that's my point. And I've repeated this over and over again, and I try to tell it to new students coming into the profession. But you want to be a licensed electrician in this state or the state of Chicago, because it's not really, we don't have licensing in the state. It's pretty much only the Chicagoland area. But that's 5 years of schooling and on-the-job training.
Mm.
The state of Illinois does license plumbers, and it's also another 5 years of schooling and on-the-job training. All right, 4 years for HVAC. And then you start adding up the roofers, the framers, the insulation, drywall, windows, doors, cabinets, counters, concrete, flat work, overhead doors. The list is long.
Yeah.
But don't worry, 60 hours of YouTube watching videos, and I get 70% on a multiple choice quiz.
70%.
No,
Good
Yeah, well,
D.
we're trying to get that elevated a little bit, and then poof, I can help you with the biggest thing. So, the biggest thing I want to come across, and I'm going to say this to you personally, is that most home inspectors are uneducated.
Mm.
All right, and finding that right person that's going to actually service your client professionally is important. You know,
Mhm.
some people, you know, and we got good and bad of everything. I know that there's home inspectors that vow not to make more than 10 or 15 items on their list.
Yeah.
Does that help your client?
Nope.
All right, I got other home inspectors that value, you know, that we got real estate agents that tell them that they don't want to be on a home inspection more than an hour.
Right. Yeah.
You said right. That's
No,
interesting.
I've
You
heard
that.
I've heard or from the inspection companies themselves saying, "Hey, we'll send out a couple so you don't have to be there 3-4 hours."
And I get that, and we do that too. Sometimes we're going to have a big property, you know, like we just did one up in the North Shore, and I don't know, we got another one coming up too up there, but it's like 10,000 square feet.
Mhm.
Some of these houses, I have to send 4 or 5 people.
Yeah,
it'd take
that
you
makes
days
sense.
if you didn't.
Especially the way we do it.
Mhm.
I mean, there's still single man people that'll get through that thing in 45 minutes, you know, and you
Yep.
could run through any house. And that's the point I'm saying. And I don't know how often we work. I'd have to look up our numbers together. I don't even know if we ever have. But what are you looking for? I mean, how do you put somebody on your team?
It's always an improvement process. I don't work really with anybody that I started working with earlier in my career because it's continuing to want to improve the service. Joey's not in my company, but he's a reflection of myself when I
Well
give him
said.
to. So, same
No.
with Patrick. They're not you're not part of my company, but it's part of my team. And if they have a bad experience with any of these two guys, it's a bad experience with me.
Yeah,
And if it's a bad experience with me, then the referrals and the service level never comes with it. And so my mindset and view and goal is always to build a really long-term relationship with all my clients, because even ones that have not purchased or sold with me have referred me clients in the past, because
you
maybe
need
they
to repeat that. What is your goal again?
to have a long-term relationship with my clients.
And every time I ask somebody or ask a real estate agent, what do you sell? That is the answer I want.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I sell myself. I
Yeah.
sell my trust. I sell that you're going to have faith that I know
Well,
what
Charles,
I'm doing.
this is not rocket science. That's the thing.
But we have a lot of uneducated people. And
Yeah.
I'm not trying. Well, I guess I am trying to be argumentative a little bit. You know,
It's not
Patrick,
rocket
because-
science, but yeah, you do have to have knowledge. For me, more importantly, what knowledge you don't have, you can ask. Like, I have a team. I've been doing this. Sometimes it feels like forever. Sometimes it feels like I started yesterday. Right. But then I also have coaches. I have people that have been doing it for 30 plus years. That anything that I'm not aware of or I don't know, a quick phone call right now, I'll call my coach or anybody, they'll pick up because they know that's the relationship that we have. So ultimately, that's you mentioned that as well just before. When I'm looking to add people in my team, I don't care what you know or don't know about real estate. I want to know more about your personality, and if that fits. Because if you're not a people person, you can't do this.
Oh yeah.
If you don't, if you're like just pretending you're
robot.
just gonna be like on the computer and just not talk to anybody, I'll tell you this is not for you.
You could be an admin, you know, you could be a paper pusher if you're gonna, but you know, you won't grow. I think
You won't grow. No,
No.
not at all.
the way that you know you get to the point where you're at.
Yeah, no, and then so it's different. It's different for everybody, but that ultimately that's what the long term goal is, to build that relationship where you're like, Cesar's my guy. I know he's got my back. Whether it's $100,000 property or like a $4 or $5 million property, you know that he's not going to care about that. It's not about the numbers. It's about like getting your goal accomplished. That's what helps my goals eventually.
You know, it's funny you mentioned the lead pipe stuff before. That was brought up maybe about a year or so ago. And then Patrick ended up doing a whole bunch of research on it, you know, and I try to give him the skinny on the lead pipe, but then he goes ahead and does some really in-depth stuff about, okay, yeah, lead is bad. I'm not going to argue that, all right?
Mhm.
If we ingest it or inhale it, we bring it into the body, it stops the growth of the brain. I get it. That's important stuff. It crosses over the placenta. I get it. But it's not in the news for a reason. You
Yeah.
know, and just about every house built, well, I'm going to say pre-70s, all right, is going to have a lead water line in it.
Mhm.
You know, most of our inventory has lead water lines in it.
I think
And
1986 is when
86, thank you.
was the changeover to
the permanent changeover.
right. Yeah, I mean, the research I did, the pertinent part of it, you guys can Google the chemistry. The water department has been dealing with lead service pipes for a very long time, and they know how to make it safe. But if you're still concerned, if you've got young kids, or you just are generally worried about it, you can go. Don't call 311. Just don't call it. Just don't do it. You'll end up in an endless phone tree. Get the 311 app, and you can actually order a lead test for free, and they'll send it to you.
It's only in the city of Chicago.
That's in the city of Chicago. I can't speak for any other municipality, but it's worth looking into. I mean, if you were in Naperville,
Whoa!
so,
What a Napervist.
so that one is an arrow out to our friend Larry Shackman. If they may do even more. I mean, they got a lot of money out there. So, but yeah, you can order a free lead test, and if you're really worried, you can also get filters for your, for your
There's
fixtures.
always solutions, and I know that's also part of the infrastructure plan, where they want to get the lead pipes out of everybody's house. But who knows that that's gonna?
Yeah,
What's gonna happen?
Depending on your income and your finances, you may qualify for the city to come in and do it for free. But they also subsidize. I think it's a $3,000 or $6,000 building permit to do that, and they'll also subsidize that. I don't have all the details. I did the research, like a year ago. But
Our building permit was done by the size of the hole they had to make. All right, so when we redid our house and everything else, the Village of Wilmette made me put in a new water line. I kicked, I screamed, I whined, I did everything else there. I don't know what the male version of they call them Karens. I think it's Carl's.
It's
that
Ken.
was me.
Ken,
All right?
you were a Ken.
Ken, all right, thank you very much.
You're
I needed
welcome.
to know that. But that was me. I didn't want to do it. I really am not afraid of the lead water lines. I know that the way we do things, it's that healthy. But we ended up doing. But yeah, our permit was over $7,000.
Yeah.
Because they have to put the street back together, and they're responsible for everything. They won't let the contractors do all that stuff. So that way, it was expensive. And
that's just for to replace the water line, right? That
was just the water
Your
line.
building permit was more than that.
Oh,
I know
yeah.
some places
A lot
it's
more.
based on the frontage that you have on the street, but yeah, I reckon Wilmette, they're like, I think we can get more if we base it on the square footage.
I love my village. I'm not going to go criticize them.
Come on, let's
Every
make some
single-
enemies.
We're not going to do that at
Wilmette,
all.
Wilmette just
Oh, man.
entered Spirit Airlines territory for me.
Not true. You leave
Didn't
them
take
alone.
much.
No, it didn't. But Joey, does that even come into play when somebody's getting a mortgage?
On my end, the only time that any sort of water comes into play is on VA, and if you're on well or septic, we just do a water test. However, that's going to be private stuff anyway. So
And it's easy.
yeah, and it's an easy fix too if there is any issues.
Yeah,
So.
everything comes up with filters and stuff like that. So we're actually starting to write white papers on all of this stuff, and I wouldn't mind your advice on this, Cesar, at all. I've been in this business for over 30 years, and I've been doing these Zoom calls with our clients after the inspection, where I go over the report and I talk about the severity of the issue. And I found that there's 3 categories, all right? What is the probability that something bad is going to happen because of this? How much is it going to cost to remove that probability? And what is the outcome? Or in other words, how bad can it hurt somebody, or how bad can it damage a property if I don't do anything about this? And in all 3 of those, I think that, whatever the different scale is, that is going to be, the severity that we should be calling these things out. And after I'm listening to my clients telling me about, oh my God, there's a lead water line in here, and I'm repeating myself over and over again. I'm like, yeah, we make it alkalytic, we put phosphates in it, there's a lead phosphate coating, we don't have problems. The reason why you heard in the news with Flint, Michigan, and it even happened here in Crest Hill, is because the water became acidic. The human being that's managing the water department made a mistake, all right? And it takes basically 6 to 9 months to go ahead and put all that back to normal again. I get all that. But if that's the case and you want to be safe, throw the filters on.
Yeah.
It's the cheapest thing to do instead of spending 10 to 20 grand. on these sort of stuff. And I'm sorry that happened to you. But again, it goes back to the uneducated stuff. And
Yeah, no. And then when we found out too that this was in Elmwood Park, that the town was actually in the process of replacing all those
yeah, well, that's
the
doing
pipes
it
from
too.
yeah.
That's why I
from the
wanted
city.
to let them pay for it instead of me paying for it.
Yeah.
You know, but they're doing their inventory, so is Elmwood Park. You know.
Yeah.
And they're doing all that process now. I'm sorry, I get when it comes, you know, to our profession, and I watch you two, Joey and Patrick, and I see you guys getting, you know.
I was goofy. I get animated.
Yeah, we all do. It's like, you know, we understand. Don't do that. That's not helping
Yeah.
anyone. And when it's my profession, it strikes me a little bit harder.
Yeah.
All right.
The way I think about it, I'm sorry, I'm gonna.
Yeah.
The way I think you really need to make sure that you're continually evaluating whether or not you're making it about you or the client,
Mm-hmm.
and to the
Say
best.
that again. Oh my God. is
Well,
that important?
we need to
Yeah.
be continually evaluating whether we're making things about ourselves or about our clients. And if you find yourself fighting for something that the client doesn't want or need,
Yeah.
you need to slow down and just, make it more about the client. Your ego, when you blow up someone's phone about something that, you might not be, I mean, maybe their heart was in the right place, but
Maybe
it made,
sure,
to
yeah.
me, the story that's being told is that someone's ego got in the way
Mhm.
of their better sense. You certainly point it out, tell the client, but at the end of the day, it sounds like they just lacked expertise about the concern
But isn't that all four of our jobs? Isn't that what we're supposed to do is educate our clients so they can make an intelligent decision?
Well, no doubt, but in this instance, the person who's going to be viewed as the expert in the matter is the building inspector, and so when the lawyer and or the broker comes back and goes, no, actually they put phosphates in the water supply, creates a barrier, that then when they weigh whether or not your expertise is, who's got the better expertise in that. Probably the building inspector is going to win, and now I've got a long way to come
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
try to educate the client. Hey, actually, let's go on the city's website. The city's website's got a lot about it, as a matter of fact. So,
But then mentally, what does that do to the client? Now you just sound like a guy who's trying to get something closed.
Yeah,
Well,
you're trying
yeah,
to sell them.
and
Yeah,
possibly.
you're
That's
like,
why
oh, he's
it's
trying to
good
sell
to
me.
have a third party, and actually this is something I want to do with our state association, is let's have a group effort,
Yeah.
coming up in consensus so that when something like that happens, all right, here's a white paper from the Illinois Association of Home Inspectors that says why lead isn't a big deal.
how are you going to
No.
get that consensus? Because there's so many different,
I know the president of the association, I think he could arrange that,
well,
Probably Charlie.
It
Yeah.
is.
well,
And he's got a little bit of pull in this state,
I don't
so
know.
he
I-
can use stuff like that.
I've met some of the other people in your association, and
Listen, all I need is a few volunteers and we could put these things together.
And
I
that-
know I want to do it myself.
well,
You tell me, do you think it would help you if it was from a third party not involved in the transaction at all?
if you could get like legitimate consensus on that, I mean, I know you
Yeah.
could get 6 lawyers in a room and come away with zero consensus about anything related to law. Even though I think I know my opinion is correct about certain things. I read the
Well, your opinion is always correct.
well, duh. But
Yeah.
I read the lawyer listservs and I go, that guy's an idiot. That person doesn't know what the hell they're talking about.
Thank God he
Oh,
doesn't
Jesus.
read the home inspector listservs, because otherwise he would be pointing at me. That guy's an idiot. Who knows? Or does
I mean, yeah, maybe.
he? Maybe.
Well, Charlie, that would have been avoided in my situation if you would have gone through that Zoom presentation with my client. And not saying that you didn't, I'm saying I'll build for somebody else.
Yeah.
But if that would have gone through my client, that would have never happened, right? He would have been
I
okay. He
might
would have
argue that
understood.
because it sounds like he called the client, is what I heard you say.
Exactly. He blew my phone up. I'm like, who is this? Because I was actually
Yeah.
showing a land deal, and I'm answer. And the way that he also, which was upsetting, hey, see what's going on? And like he didn't even say, this is the inspector. I'm talking about this deal. He's like, hey, what's going on, man? Like as if we're buddies and we've talked every single day. And I'm like, wait, who is this? He's like, oh, I'm from. I'll
Wasn't
tell
it
you
a
who the company
Saturday
is
Night?
afterwards.
And you are, and you're with. Wasn't it Saturday Night Live skit a long time ago?
Yeah,
Oh.
and then he also after that he called the
time
client
ago.
as well, and was by the way that he was talked on the phone and to the client, he's like, oh yeah, this is a huge deal, right? And so they didn't even give us opportunity to even quote unquote explain or understand the situation. So, but again,
Knowledge
that's
is
part
power.
of the experience. And you going through that process of weeding out your right partners. So
No, absolutely. And knowledge and power. Joe, you look like you wanted to add.
No. I feel like we're in an echo chamber of, how important the relationship is, and
We are.
so I keep nodding my head because I'm just like, oh, all these people sound just like me. So that's all I had in my brain going there.
I see Joey's phone. I know what he's got going on. He's got a Southwest flight that leaves in 24 hours. He's trying to get in Group A.
I don't want a C spot.
So we are coming to the end of the hour real quick. Joey, if you don't mind, give us your contact information and some final words of wisdom for whether it's a real estate broker or home buyer, please.
So, Joey Matthews, the VA Loan Nerd. Find me at thevaloannerd.com or across all social media as at the VA Loan Nerd. You can call or text me at 630-235-2405. And all of your mortgage nerds, your realtor nerds, attorney nerds, inspector nerds, if it feels like they are just pushing, they're worried about themselves and not about you.
I
a
love
one
that.
for the
That's a big
ladies.
deal. Patrick, please.
Hey, I got no
We
background
have fun.
music because, I'm just obnoxious lawyer. If you want to see more of this obnoxious lawyer, you can follow me on all the social medias, but specifically Instagram, Loftus_law. And you can find me on TikTok at Loftus Law. Lately, I've been talking about the NAR settlement. So if you want to get my hot takes, follow me and then DM me your questions.
And I think all that stuff's important. Cesar, please give us your contact information and a couple words of wisdom, please.
absolutely, Cesar DeeSouza, and you could reach me directly at 847-997-0623.
Repeat that, please.
847-997-0623, and that'll be directly to my line, not my assistant or my office manager.
That's another big thing there too. Is to be accessible. I'll be honest. We put a phone tree in our system. all
Yeah.
right? I was just getting hammered with sales calls. All right, and I had to stop them somehow. But all you gotta do is press 3 if you want to get through all that.
Yeah.
And it will come to me.
And being accountable, being the one who is taking account and making sure that the client is getting the right service. It's not being left up to somebody else who is not going to do right by the client.
And that's like the center of hub. And I want to offer myself to you if you're ever doing a showing, whether it's a list or a sell, and you see something unusual, you want to know the dates of appliances, anything that I could do. We don't charge for that stuff. Just send me a text. All right, we're actually putting an app together right now that's going to help you do all
That's
that
great.
and do communication.
Yep.
But I
That's
offer
awesome.
that to you. I want to
Love
give a
that.
special thank you to Devin Tingle in the other room. He's the one that makes all this stuff work.
And he's
Thank
responsible
you.
for the sexy music. So.
And
He's
he
not
is
even looking at
responsible
us.
for
He's
the
a
sexy
jerk
Joey
right now.
music. My name is Charlie Bellefontaine. I own Chicagoland Home Inspectors. Our phone number is 312-544-9180. I want to thank everybody for listening to us for the whole hour. And again, my name is Charlie, and I am